After my sobering video about simplicity, I felt like doubling down on it with something even more unsexy: routine. I know what you're thinking. Routine is for suburban parents with 5 kids to coordinate, or for type A personalities who own more than one planner and label maker, or for people with chronic anxiety who need a lifeboat to strap themselves to. But it's certainly not for you, the unshackled and creative freelancing archetype that will never bow down to something so stale and confining. And for a long time, I felt the same. Judging routine too harshly as a tool to herd sheep, I defied it with fervor, just like I defied any other form of control. In my school time, I would doodle anime figures into my school books, write comments for teachers into test papers when I wasn't impressed with them, and apologize on the next paper when I overstepped. I would chew gum in class just to see how long I could get away with it. I argumented my way out of assignments that I deemed pointless, and later I would even pretend to be sick to skip whole days in trade school. Not out of laziness, but because I felt like I could profit much more from staying home and teaching myself the violin and C++, instead of sitting through 4 years of repetitive typography drills. I want to mention here that I was never disrespectful towards teachers. That's just not cool. But I simply couldn't be bothered when I didn't see the point of a task. The urge to be my own master has always been strong in me, leading me to clash with authority figures and going against the grain with conviction, to be autonomous at any cost. I was never employed for longer than 6 months, and was convinced that I was destined to trailblaze through wilderness, instead of promenading on well-swept paved walks. And that's not a problematic undertaking per se, but this aimless existence without any routine, no matter how ambitious and promising, eventually led me to burnout, anxiety, and sadly also a very low income for most of my life. Because there's one authority you can't rebel against, no matter how determined you are. An authority you can't outrun and that will punish you for trying to revolt. And that authority is time. There are 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and an average of 4,500 weeks in a lifetime. Time doesn't wait until you feel inspired. It doesn't negotiate when you are exhausted. It moves forward, whether you're ready or not, constantly, irreversibly, and relentlessly devouring your days, whether you fill them with something productive or let them slip through your fingers unmanaged. Now, time is not a villain though, it's just a force. But it's a force that demands a form from you if you want to do anything meaningful with it in your life. Because freedom without form, that's a recipe for entropy. Entropy is the natural tendency of all systems to move toward disorder over time if no energy is being put into maintaining order instead. As a living being that interacts with the world around it, you too are a system. And your entropy is the invisible force that makes your focus drift when you don't have a plan, that makes your creative energy scatter when you don't have a goal, and that makes your time slip when you don't have a rhythm. You wake up with over a dozen glorious hours ahead of you, your day full of possibilities without anyone telling you what to do, and by nightfall things have spiraled out of control and you somehow did everything and nothing. Emails are half sent, your genius ideas half baked, and your thoughts frayed like a sheep to pay in a storm. If you don't counterbalance entropy by filling your time with some kind of structure, something else will fill it for you, and that something is chaos. Chaos theory is a branch of mathematics and physics that tries to explain how deterministic systems, like your own day-to-day life, can get completely out of whack due to minute and totally unpredictable occurrences. Deterministic systems are governed by laws and rules like gravity, but they are also highly sensitive at the same time and thus lend themselves to chaos. In nature, chaos isn't the exception, it's the rule. Stars are born from chaotic gas clouds, whole ecosystems evolve through unpredictable conditions. The famous butterfly in Brazil is causing a storm in Texas, and even in your own brain, billions of neurons fire in patterns that no one fully understands. Now, when you work for yourself, chaos doesn't knock. It lets itself in. And chaos here isn't just a messy desk or a forgotten lunch bag. You are not just struggling to get dressed before noon. You are navigating universal patterns of disorder and unpredictability. Ancient philosophers didn't have chaos theory spelled out as we have today, but they felt this intuitively. Heraclitus, the weeping philosopher, said, "All is flux," further elaborating that you never step in the same river twice, meaning that everything changes and that change is constant. That's deterministic chaos right there. But humans crave order. Not because we are fragile, but because we are aware. We are the only species that wakes up in the morning and wonders what to do with their time today. That's beautiful and terrifying. So we build routines, not to cage ourselves, but to survive the flood. We build riverbanks to guide the natural flow of chaos down a path that actually leads somewhere promising and doesn't just wash away our potential, leaving a sad swamp behind. But that structure, that guiding riverbank, is something that needs to be created actively and continuously continuously. Otherwise, the default will always be chaos. Your thoughts, your energy, your day all naturally unfold on their messy own without a container. And that container is routine. Your life, while governed by principles like sleeping and eating and waiting anxiously for your Amazon delivery so no one steals it from your doorstep again, is highly sensitive to initial conditions. Your desk gets messy, thus your files stay unsorted, thus your energy gets scattered. That's not you being bad at adulting. That's basically physics. And so every bit of structure that you create, every good habit, every little ritual, is an act of rebellion against the natural pull of entropy. A seemingly trivial decision can ripple out into everything else. You don't drink your morning cup of tea in peace and you are grumpy for the rest of the day. You delay a project by an hour and suddenly it's tomorrow's problem with interest. You don't do the dishes before going to bed and you have twice as much to do the next day. If you don't create routine, you are leaving yourself at the mercy of those tiny, sometimes invisible shifts. And the longer you let something spiral out of control and into entropy, the harder it gets to get it back to order. Humans are creatures of habit, and just as much as we can learn good routines, we can also internalize bad ones. It's no easy feat to ditch your daily Netflix and chill, but the sooner you do, the better. You will thank me for it, I hope. Now, chaos doesn't just spell disaster, though. It can in fact also be appreciated as something exciting and challenging, a welcome change from monotony. And that mindset is, in my opinion, the healthiest way of dealing with it. Because even with a firm routine in place, chaos will enter your life eventually. Routine then is just what makes you more resilient when disaster strikes, because you're carrying that inner peace and order with you everywhere you go. And routine doesn't have to mean a strict 9 to 5, or getting up at 4 a.m. sipping mushroom coffee under a cold shower every day. Not every routine is for you. You can take advice from that from other people as a suggestion. But in the end, you have to find out what truly works for you and not for others, as routine means something very different for everyone. For me personally, it was never about doing exactly the same thing every day, or having the whole day planned out by the hour. I actually tried that, and I'm too happily scattered of a person to endure such an intense form of routine. And I don't deal well with monotony. But I suffer from intense mind chatter that often renders me completely zoned out for way too long. My brain is so busy at all times, I sometimes think I have another person in there. And thus I learned that if I wanted to be a freelancing artist, I had to stop running from structure. I had to give my racing mind a track to run on, and I had to give my ADHD a schedule to jump around in with a certain amount of liberty, but not totally out of control either. Because we can't make things like ADHD and the racing mind disappear. We can just guide them better, like the river I mentioned earlier. So instead of a daily planner, I just have a few cornerstones to frame my day. My morning cornerstones are getting up every day at the same time, exercising and drinking a cup of tea while reading. My midday cornerstones are meditating, a brisk walk and a home-cooked meal. And my evening cornerstones are writing in my journal and sometimes reading. What I do in between these cornerstones is always productive, but not strictly planned. My professional tasks are too variable and my focus often shifts. The latter can become a problem though, which needs to be tackled separately. I might talk about focus in another video one day. But the gist is that you need to create just enough order to channel your energy without losing it in the void of entropy. It's your artificial gravity. It's what helps you hold form while everything else dissolves around you, especially when you are your own boss. There is no external force keeping you in orbit other than yourself. And it is freeing much more than it is limiting, because the gravity of routine resets your mind to be able to see the big picture again and not get endlessly lost in details. Freedom on its own isn't enough. Without some kind of form, it decays. It doesn't stay this shiny, open-ended possibility forever. It gets messy. Your thoughts unravel, your energy diffuses, and your days melt into an unsightly mess like uneaten Neapolitan ice cream. So, find a routine that works for you to guide you through your exciting and busy day. A routine that frees up your mental space for all the appreciated chaos, that paves the way for unencumbered productivity, and that opens up little windows of blissful peace to be and stay curious. Thanks for watching. I felt like I deferred it with fervor. Fervor. I defied it with fervor. 7 hours in a day. 24 hours in a day. Time. Guide. As a suggestion. As a suggestion. As a suggestion. 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 Where was I?